consciousness during the 50s and 60s was that of a social scientist and a professor and a wealthy guy, and I wanted to collect things. My apartment was full of antiques. I had a Cessna airplane, a Triumph motorcycle, a Mercedes, silk jackets, the works. I felt myself being a model of what should be in our culture. I think that the turnaround came from meeting Tim Leary and my work with psychedelics. I was feeling very dissatisfied with psychology. It wasn't describing what was happening in my heart. And I had a psychoanalysis, and that wasn't satisfying either. Then psychedelics gave me a new consciousness from my heart. It freed me from my roles before psychedelics. I was just a set of roles, nothing behind it. A role of professor, role of lover, a role of cello player, collector, a role of scientist. They didn't add up to a feeling of home, of being somewhere in myself. And I was constantly looking in other people's eyes to see whether I was doing good. Psychedelics brought a huge change. The psilocybin mushrooms, those made me realize that I was in reality down here in my heart and not in my head. I was down here in a spiritual identity, not in my ego, which was based on fear. And the heart me was based on love. And I felt freed from other people's judgments of my actions. During the psychedelic period, I became aware of the East, their philosophy and their religion, Buddhism, Hinduism. They were cognizant of places in my awareness, in my consciousness, that Western psychology, they didn't have anything about it. And I was going into psychedelic sessions feeling my spiritual heart, and then coming out and teaching only about the ego and never anything about the spiritual heart. Aldous Huxley gave us the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I had just a few days before receiving the book had a psychedelic session which I couldn't explain. And this book was words describing my psychedelic experience. This made me think the East was better connected with the planes of consciousness. So I decided I'd have to go to India. I looked up, he was right here, and he was looking at me with unconditional love. And I had never been looked at with an unconditional love by my parents, by my friends, by my lovers, not by anybody. I felt loved. I felt loved. And I felt something happening in my heart. That visit lasted 6 months. Yeah. 6 months. I just couldn't get away from Maharaji. Being in the culture that spawns people like Maharaji, I heard many, many stories of people like Maharaji, these saints, these gurus, these holy men and women. We went to different holy places and met some of these people. I began to see that the people in that culture were living in their souls, and we in the West were living in our egos. That's the soil from which these saints or these people like Maharaji can grow. Maharaji, he was like a ball of love. In the 6 months that I stayed with Maharaji in India, I'd find that every time I would sit with Maharaji, time would stop. It was like a moment expanded, and a moment in which not time and not space. Wow. Those moments went deep within myself, and I could feel the spirit, those moments. Maharaji had that aura. He lived in eternity. And that eternity just, it's love, it's compassion, it's peace, it's joy. It's just here. Just here. And when I got back from India and I started to lecture in New York and Pennsylvania and Connecticut, I tried to capture in words what that was about. Out of that, I think, came Be Here Now. When I came back from India, I had some lectures. They were sort of promised. I was trying to get across these loving beings. I wanted people to get the concept of guru. It's a very hard task because you surrender to the guru. And in the West, why do you surrender to another human being? And these aren't another human being, it's another human being body, and there's a God inside. There's God inside. That's what you surrender to. They mirror for you the God inside you. The lectures immediately after India, my words were coated with Maharaji. And they talked about Maharaji. And they were talking from Maharaji. And the audiences, they couldn't get enough. I remember a lecture I gave, we started at 7 o'clock, And the lecture went on until about 5 or 6 the next morning. I was wanting to give what I'd had learned from Maharaji. And some of the people got it, and some of the people didn't. But there were so many that got it. And I started to lecture again and again and again. I remember a talk in a little town in New Hampshire. Hippies came to hear me. They brought their mothers and their ministers to hear me. That coding of Maharaji captivated these people. That energy was distilled in Be Here Now. Maharaji said I should stay in the West. He said I should not talk to anybody about him. Well, that 2 years, I talked about nothing but him. I was bad. Maharaji didn't give us instruction. He gave us example. One time I was called from the back of the temple. This was the second time I was over there, where I was with the Westerners. He called me and he said, "Ram Das, tell the truth." "Yes, Maharaji." And then the next day, he brought me forth, and he says, "Ram Das, I want you to love everybody." And I said, "I can't." And he came up to me, nose to nose, and he said, "Love everybody and tell the truth." And it was like he was telling me that the person I thought myself to be, he was changing my insides. Because I had responded with ego, and he doesn't care. He tells me, "You tell the truth, you." Love everybody. Every time you see him be doing Ram, 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 he said, "Remember God, remember God. Whatever you do, remember God. Remember God." And then he pointed to Hanuman and told stories about Hanuman. Most people thought that he was Hanuman. And Hanuman was serving God. That image I came back with. And then we worked with prisoners who needed spiritual guidance, worked with dying people. Then another one of our Maharaji satsang started Seva Foundation. Seva is service. Service to God. We all got together and served humanity. What we did first was serve blind people, cataract operations, and we set up hospitals doctor's training. This is India, Nepal, Africa. He gave instructions to love everybody, serve, and remember. And I've done that. I've done that. Now, he's died. Now he's left his body. And all I can do, if I want to nestle up to him, is love, serve, remember. When I came back from India, the thing that for Maharaji was the miracles, the reading the mind and doing miraculous things. I was captivated by that, and I told everybody the miracles. It wasn't till later till I realized that what Maharaji did to me was through the love, I hadn't realized it for months. Yeah. And that love, that unconditional love, has been with me ever since. The book that Ramesh and I are writing characterizes Maharaji and others like Maharaji and the incredible love that they give and their miracles and all. And I've been to India and I've met Maharaji and these others. We in the West have no idea of these exceptional people, these exceptional beings who have their consciousness, all the planes of consciousness. And they have control of nature. I thought in this book we'd bring to the West these beings and they will stretch our concept of humanity. Yeah.
Rama bolo, bolo bolo Ram. 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 Rama bolo, bolo bolo Ram.
Rama bolo, Rama bolo, bolo bolo Ram.
Rama bolo, Rama bolo, bolo bolo Ram. Rama bolo, Rama bolo, bolo bolo Ram.
Rama bolo, Rama bolo, bolo bolo Ram. Rama bolo, Rama bolo.